Here's where it starts. This is what I really checked in the conversation, because they were talking about the Ethan stuff before, and I don't care. Okay, this was fascinating to me, and so I did get hooked onto this quick because Vadim and Hutch were debating the Ethan Klein Hassan drama, and honestly, that has had so many chapters, and I only read like a little bit of part 4, The Winds of Winter, in that series. Okay, so I don't know all the details and depth of like when Ethan was sent the skull of Ragnar or whatever lore that anyone wants to drop on me. I know some of the big swings just from it pouring over into my ears from other people talking about it. But this fascinates me. This conversation here fascinates me because Hassan has this tendency of, he gets into like a scuffle with somebody and he throws out, like, sometimes he'll throw out accusations, and so this will also sometimes be a problem with his coverage too, that or like float accusations that don't really have anything to it. For example, like questioning my true intentions when it comes to being in Ukraine, war tourist pervert, because I interviewed Ukrainians and what they thought about him. It was clear that he didn't like that I interviewed Ukrainians and what they thought about him. He thought it to not be of any importance, and then said that I did it out of context without providing evidence, and then made that claim that I still get every odd once in a while somebody in my chat just to come in and say, "You're a war pervert." I still don't know what that means, besides I guess they think that I do this for fun, that this is like tourism for me. I want to go bird watching, not FPV watching. Thank you very much. Either way, Hassan has that tendency, and he suggested that Loner could be a paid Israeli propagandist, paid to go to Israel and like do this. He was suggesting that it's like, this is something that could be a possibility. But looking at the type of content that Loner put out, a lot of it critical of the Israeli government, very critical of the Israeli government in many instances, and with many of the pro-Israel people that he interviewed, him reflecting on it and commentating on it after, critiquing them, I just didn't see any evidence. And not to mention that there's actually no, besides me inferring from like the style of his coverage, there's also no physical evidence of him being paid off this way or that way. And so it just seems like a really shallow way to go after Lonerbox for his trip over to Israel and Palestine, and he did visit both, because maybe it's harder to deal with the points. It doesn't seem substantive. It just seems like a wild accusation. But Vadim, of course, creationist cat fame, and I of course I'm still a big fan of creationist cat. May he rest in peace. He doesn't agree. He thinks it's actually reasonable, though tricky. He thinks it's reasonable. While Hutch and Vadim went back and forth, eventually Lonerbox jumps in here and it gets a little spicy. And so I wanted to show you guys this. And I find it interesting because, man, if what Vadim says during his debate with Lonerbox is true, it might throw a lot of my interviews into moral question, and a lot of interviews done by a lot of documentarians. So let's listen to it.
Ride at my
what
pony,
the fuck are you
my
doing kind of move. They like he did not think.
Okay, what about fine. We can move past that one. Then. Fine.
Would be willing to be so self-sabotaging with like he knew that it was going to
box of being
all these negative repercussions, which it did have, and he just didn't think that.
Okay, what about accusing Lonerbox of being a paid Hasbara propagandist?
I don't like. First of all, that's a tricky one for me, because I don't think that I talk with Lonerbox here and there, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that they paid for, or rather had everything paid for while they were out there. I think that they paid for their tickets there and whatnot, but they had a great deal of people who were showing them around.
No. When someone says it's a paid trip, the obvious context is that you were paid to do like Israeli.
What does that mean? They had people that were showing them around. What does that? I have people show me around. When I go to a town I haven't been before, I don't just kind of waddle around until I stumble upon something newsworthy. I usually have to, talk, hey, what's the sights to see? Also having somebody there to translate in a situation where, I'm talking to somebody who can't speak English, which is more often than not, what does that have to do with anything?
Propaganda.
I mean, it was a propaganda trip. Like Israel is not going. And then that's really, I guess, what I have to say about it. I don't particularly I think that it is losing the forest for the trees to talk about whether or not it was a paid.
But that's what Hassan. He accused him of being a paid Israeli propagandist. That's obviously what he's.
It was a propaganda trip. The reason they don't.
Okay, again, number one, let's say it was a propaganda trip. Let's say Lonerbox went there with the intention of one day seeing Israel conquer the Druze communities of southern Syria, establishing greater Israel, and he wants to see Gaza pushed into the sea. Let's say that this is like some secret nefarious deal, or maybe it's something more base, that he's greedy and he wants money and he does all this stuff. But that separation there, the greed one and the actual propaganda one, that's actually a big difference. Like, I mean, I would say morally, like having a terrible position is bad, but being paid to have a terrible position and that being the incentive and reason you're doing it is even worse. And so already I don't agree with the propagandist label, but let's say we agree with the propagandist label. Paid propagandist. There's no evidence of pay. And so saying, well, I do think it's propagandist. This is the type of pivoting that I see from conservatives on Fox when they're trying to explain Trump speak. That's what this is. It's, well, Trump said that XYZ was a terrible reporter who's not a real American and was born in Guadalupe and and they'll say, well, they're a terrible reporter. Then just ignore the first half. It still, in this instance, I don't even agree with the propagandist thing, but it's a pivot, and you can see Hutch looking at the camera too. He caught it.
Don't allow people to go in and like look at all this shit if they have any expectation.
But they were also highly critical of people when they were there too.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Like they talked with this. I think he's a rabbi. His name is Yishel Fleischer. Maybe I'm fucking up his name, but he.
Wait, if Lonerbox is in the chat, he can. I don't know if you're comfortable with it, but
Lonerbox does admit,
he could join the Discord and clarify here. But Hassan accused him of being a paid propagandist.
I'm not. I did not say he was a paid.
No, I said Hassan accused him of being.
By the way, if that was true, it would completely discredit Lonerbox. It could make, like, if his audience found out he was paid by the Israeli government to go to Israel, it could discredit him. It could make him lose tons of his audience who go to him because they like somebody who isn't just some echo chamber guy. He likes to go out and talk to people who disagrees with him. He's fine with his audience hearing alternative perspectives, who isn't just completely devoted to some ideologue and some cult, or is an ideologue necessarily himself. And so people go to him to that, and if they find out that he's actually just an Israel shill who's being paid in the pocket by the Mossad, then his career's over, or maybe at least he's gonna have to do some rebranding. Maybe, I don't know. How I went from Scottish Lebanese socialist to Zionist Israeli Ben Gvir-esque crusader. So making an accusation like this, or treating it like it's or whatever. No, this is pretty sizable, especially when you are the largest political streamer on Twitch. Well, was the largest political streamer on Twitch. I guess that's Aspen Gold now. God, kill me. That has an impact. It has an impact.
Paid propagandist.
I don't think that it is out. First of all, if someone goes somewhere and they end up getting a lot of, because there's no doubt that both Lonerbox Destiny to a lesser degree, but they both kind of, I'm sure, received like a real boost in their.
Come on. We're talking about you're jumping through hoops to try to explain what Hassan said. What Hassan said, he was clearly saying that Lonerbox was paid to go to Israel to do Hasbara propaganda, and you're like, okay, I can explain it by taking this angle and that angle. That's a crazy thing to say. I mean, I feel like you should just be able to.
Crazy thing to say.
Yeah, it is, bro.
No,
that is.
Dude. Why is it? Why? Like, do you think that there are not?
Because he's not a paid propagandist. It's not true. That's why I think it's bad.
But yes, but they would have paid them to go out there. They didn't take. This is my understanding. They did not.
They would have,
because they didn't want it to sort of like look like there's something that looks super phony in a situation like that.
Okay, let's say that's true. Let's just give Vadim. Let's just on its face just say that's true. Then they're not paid propagandists. That they're not a paid propagandist. He shouldn't have said it. It's not complicated. Whether or not he has any opinion that's ever been sympathetic to Israel, he's not a paid propagandist. You don't think that I couldn't find some NGO or some like Ukrainian government aligned group that might be able to give me like $300? Maybe I could. It's not worth it, I don't think. I think, there's a question about ethics maybe somewhere there that has made me not even consider the idea. But like whether or not they would doesn't mean you can now call me a paid propagandist or even really a propagandist in the way that it's popularly used, because that's dependent on my commentary. And to say that the Israeli government would pay them for their commentary, knowing Lonerbox's commentary, you're going to have to prove that with some like letter of intent that some Israeli government organization, XYZ, wanted to pay them, and that they were continued to show interest after they saw like the type of content he was producing off of the trip would be something I'd be really interested in. Because if you could do that, then you'd have them to rights. But I don't think that exists.
Wait, would you be okay with Lonerbox like hopping in the call to explain what he did, or is that too confrontational for you?
That's fine.
I don't know Loner, if you're watching, yeah,
I'm totally fine with that. But before he comes in, I want to clarify a couple of things, because I think he's going to maybe clarify some other things that I spoke about, and I just want to make sure that in terms of his conversation with that West Bank person that I mentioned, that within that conversation, he or rather when he was discussing it on his channel, he said he did admit that was the most extreme person that he spoke to while he was out there. And there was what he thinks of as being a bit of like pushback over the course of the conversations that they had. I did not look at it that way, but he did say one or two things about while they were at a certain place, there was a mass shooting event years ago, and he did bring that up. So in that small way, he was kind of maybe challenging that person in that moment. So wanted to get that all out there. Maybe there's one or two other things that I'm not like remembering.
Challenging somebody about a terrorist attack where people died is, I think, of some significance, right? Like if I was, for example, interviewing like a Russian in Russia, like a Russian government official or somebody aligned with the pro-Putin movement, and I said, so that Moscow terror attack, like, isn't it disgusting to take the dead and disrespect them in the way the government has by saying Ukraine was behind it, to use their bodies as a political weapon instead of acknowledging the problem with religious extremism in this part of the country, and which has been an ongoing problem for decades? Like there was just but like if I was to do that, that would still not meet the standard for like journalistic integrity of look, if the rest of the interview was completely cotton candies and bubblegum, it wasn't. But if it was, maybe you'd have a point. I just find that hard to believe.
About it, but I don't want him to come in here and just kind of think that like I deny that.
Well, you can tell him. You can tell him this isn't supposed to be a gotcha. I just want him to be able to like explain. Do you mind if I pull him up?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Lonerbox, are you there?
Yeah, I heard people were talking about me.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Hey. Okay. So first of all, things that we already all know, and I know that you know. You know that Yishai Fleischer was really angry with my coverage of that trip, right?
I mean, he wasn't angry enough that he didn't, he used it as propaganda on his own channel. I don't think
with my coverage of the trip, the thing that I uploaded to my channel, you acknowledge that you know this because we've spoken about it. You know that he was angry with what I commented on that interview from my channel, right?
Of course, because it's his job to be basically put a good face forward, and whether people like that are I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think it really matters that much that he was offended by that. If you were countering in the way that I think anyone should in that situation, he never would have wanted to use your footage on his channel to begin with.
Well, he used like B-roll that was not.
Let's use an example recently for that we've talked about on the channel. You know that Cypriot YouTube MP in the European Union, Phidias, I believe his name is, Phineas and Ferb. He has terrible positions on the war in Ukraine. And he was recently confronted by a guy named Kalen, who does some reporting in this country. I remember he went to Kursk, which was very interesting because you weren't supposed to be in Kursk at that time. But he does, reporting across the country. He goes to an interview with him, grills him super, super hard, right? Maybe not always like hitting him like perfectly where the bullseye is, but constant pressure that made him crack, right? Phineas took footage from that and republished it on his channel, republished it on his social media networks. He just edited it to make himself look good and then released it. So presumably Lonerbox could have treated this dude like absolute dog doo-doo, and this dude could have still made propaganda out of it saying, look, we in Israel, we still talk and debate unlike these terrorists in Gaza. They could have still done that to make any number of message. And never mind, and they could always be used as B-roll. It's just, this is very silly. If it was questions done to make them look good, or if he didn't add the proper context in the final product when the viewer would almost certainly need it, then that'd be one thing. But we're talking about not a proper amount of aggression in the initial interview being shown. This is, I think, very low barrier critique. This is nothing burger critique. This is nothing burger critique. It's not like it. It is.
On my channel. I did not put that on my channel. He used B-roll. He used just raw footage. Yeah, of course you can do that. If you're a seller and you do an interview with Louis Theroux, you can clip out the parts of you talking and the bits that you like and just leave out the rest. But would that be Louis Theroux's fault that they got to do that?
I contacted you and I asked you, what is the most substantial pushback that you did with that guy? And then you sent me what you commented on. Mm-hmm. So are you telling me that's the most did you not show me the most substantial pushback that you did with him?
I showed you my coverage of it, yeah, where I called him an insane settler who wants to conquer all the land, where he basically has this equivocation about wanting to deport anyone he considers a jihadist, which, let's face it, would be pretty much all of them. I also spoke about how he was lying about Baruch Goldstein treating Arab doctors when he had in fact refused to treat Arab doctors. I also mentioned how he lied about Baruch Goldstein getting radicalized by the violence.
While you were talking to him. You didn't do any of these things while you were talking to him or hanging out with him.
Why does that matter? Why does that matter if I'm going to do commentary for it afterwards?
He used it as he used it as he presented you guys obviously he's not going to post anything on his channel that he thinks makes him look remotely bad, and you gave him like propaganda, basically. Like that's
How did I give him propaganda? He was the one who was. He could have just filmed himself saying these things.
And not like I don't know, man. Like if I was hanging out with somebody who is the like spokesperson for Ben Gavir, I would be like way more on their ass than either of you guys were. But
okay,
if
so
you
tell me. Well, you tell me then.
You wouldn't have been invited out there to begin with.
By the way, I'll take an even more radical position than Lonerbox. I think there is a use in just documenting the positions of these people and presenting it in English. Julia Davis does nothing but, I mean, not that does nothing, but when it comes to like the stuff that I mostly follow from her, she doesn't add her own commentary besides in like her social media posts that she'll put on social media to the text or the interviews itself that are broadcast from Russian state TV. She'll translate them and broadcast them to a Western audience. And the Westerners who only get to see the Russian propaganda that's produced in English get something out of use from that. They get some use out of it. They're like, oh, I didn't know that they had these crazy beliefs. They put this on TV? And so I would say that if this guy's as crazy as Vadim and Lonerbox says he is, there might be a usefulness in just interviewing the guy in a completely non-hostile fashion and then just presenting his answers with very little to no commentary, but with added historical context. If the answers are bad enough, or if the questions are, especially if the questions are good enough, that could have enough effect in and of itself that you don't need to add any commentary. There could be a usefulness for the documentation of the historical record. That's not to say that's how Lonerbox should do it. That's not the way he makes his content. But I'm just saying that there could be a usefulness out of doing that in and of itself. I would recommend an interview done by the East German press called "The Laughing Man" on a German mercenary that fought in World War II and then fought in the Congo. If you ask the questions good enough, like you don't really need to. And they did add context afterwards, but I don't like. The interview's questions were pointed enough and the context good enough that they didn't need to be like a mean confrontational guy. They drank with him all night.
Hey, you tell me what. So you think I am not allowed then to just interview someone, let them speak freely, because I'm planning on editing content and doing something with it different from just the raw footage afterwards that pushes my opinion forward?
I think that.
How do I legitimize him? I'm a fucking nobody. What are you talking about?
I think with someone like that, because I watched other clips that you guys did. That's why I like came to you. I saw like a bunch of clips, some that were on his channel, and I think a couple of others that were, uploaded to the guy who followed you guys around with the camera. I was frankly shocked when I was watching those at like just how much there was of you guys just like sitting back and just letting this guy just act like really fucking friendly with you guys. And that's his job. He wants to put like a kind face onto settler violence to begin with. Now, look, do I think that
does any of this matter ultimately if at the end of the day, the message that Lonerbox delivered was this guy's crazy, man. He's absolutely crazy. You want to know the truth is evil can be quite benign, Vadim. Evil can be quite benign when it comes to how it presents itself on the daily basis. They don't have devil horns. You know, they don't, like the worst monsters among us are the people who do have some of the most crazy beliefs. Can sometimes be interpersonally very polite, can be very nice. And Lonerbox saw all that, and by the end of it, still made the guy upset with him. And upset with his conclusions, and his critique of him was the dude's crazy. So I mean, I don't know how further you could really go from that. So, like, what more could Vadim really want here? Just like a blow up moment from the interview itself, them not to like have dinner with him or lunch with him or walk around with him.
Went into it thinking like I'm gonna give this guy a layup, like I'm totally like going to make this guy look great. No, I don't think you did, but I think you did fail at something that you should have done. I mean, morally, I look at it like you should have, you had a moral obligation given how fucking horrible what he is represents to not challenge him more. Like the fact that at the end of it all, he like took selfies with you numerous times and whatnot. I like, look, for someone like that, I think that the way that you guys should end things is just like him thinking that you're a dick. And
so I should have just fucking fought with him and maybe canceled and end up canceling the fucking trip, like,
yeah, maybe
half
I don't
the day
know,
earlier.
or
why? So by your logic, just to be clear, by your logic, because Louis Theroux is not massively confrontational with people that he talks to. So if Louis Theroux does an interview with a settler and that settler just grabs a few of the clips of them talking, but they just leave out the bits of the documentary that they don't like and put it on their channel and say, look, here's my conversation with Louis Theroux, and then they add some commentary afterwards, does that mean Louis Theroux did propaganda for them?
That's a great question. And this is the question that I would ask Vadim, or some variation of something similar to this question, because it puts in the question a lot of great documentarian work that I think Louis Theroux and a lot of other documentarians have done.
Dude, we've already
The answer to that is no. The answer to that is clearly a fucking no. So no, I did not do propaganda for you, Shai Fleischer. Yeah, there you go.
I came to you, and in that Louis Theroux documentary, there are questions that he asked.
And you just used the exact same answer that you were always going to use, which is the interpretation of the new crowd that you are beholden to. That's all it is. That's all it is. Because again, the only content that I've ever used on my channel with Yishai is me shitting on him. That's my content. That's my product. That's it. He can clip, by the way, he can actually, so even with my commentary, if that was the only thing that was up, he could have actually still just clipped all the raw footage and just taken out my commentary. And apparently I still would have been helping him do propaganda. Like, I understand.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't even think that the extent to which you quote unquote shat on him on your channel, like yes, you definitely went at him way harder than you did when you were talking to him, but like I still don't think, given like
what should I say that would have made him more responsible?
Like I was pleased to see you shit on him to the extent that you did, but given who he is, in my opinion, I feel like you never explained that he is like, you know, kind of part of the Ben Gvir squad. You didn't put that into perspective. I mean, like, I'm saying
I said that he's a settler who wants to conquer the West Bank and kick out all the Arabs. But because of you, I should have been, oh, by the way, but he also is a Ben Gvir person. What the fuck?
Yes, that's pretty relevant.
I'm sorry, it's not that relevant. I mean, okay, the reason, I'm not saying that it isn't relevant about the person as an individual, like about his life, but the reason that Vadim wants people to know that he's a Ben Gvir person is to know that he's bad. But what's bad about Ben Gvir? What's bad about Ben Gvir is that he wants to conquer these lands because he believes they inherently belong to Israel, and he does not really care about the peoples that are on those lands. In fact, I would even say he has very negative opinions about the peoples on those lands. And so he wants to illegally conquer this land and annex it into Israel. He wants to do things that are evil. So is it giving him a pass to just describe the evil thing that he wants to do? Or would it be less of giving him a pass to not do that, but instead just mention Ben Gvir, which maybe 1 out of every 7 or 8 Americans know what that name even means?
It's disappointing to not throw that. Well, okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I think
yes, I understand. You're looking for anything. Okay, that's good.
I think that. I mean, like, look. My general point here is that I don't think that you were kind of like, you know, either definitely when you were talking to him, but when in your
you've already conceded. This is like a nothing. This is a nothing objection. We can just move on. This is a nothing objection. Like by saying, by the way, he's also affiliated with Ben Gvir, even though he supports all the things that Ben Gvir supports and all the things on top of that.
This is not a nothing objection.
It feels like
it's absolutely nothing objection. It's just because every detail. So what if you said that? I could have just been like, oh, but you didn't mention that he lied about treating Arabs, because again, like we both know that I know the history of this conflict better than you do. So I could have just picked out little nits to yours as well.
Here's coming the
spice. I'll let you go on to the next thing, but it's like saying that it's not substantial. No, that's an extremely substantial. Like the fact that you like
thoughts on Orban losing in the polls.
If people like this, I believe that we have a duty to not make them look good in these situations and not have conversations that basically, because they want to to present themselves to the public as just like both reasonable, rational. That's like why at the end of your conversations, like, you guys, I'm not talking about that particular clip that you played, but the last shoot that you guys did, you did another selfie together. And and you shook on it, and he was like, "Well, I'm glad we could agree to disagree." He says something to that effect, and you make this this fucking murderous, bloodthirsty motherfucker look pretty like tame and like just like friendly and like somebody that you can like vibe with. It's the same problem that I have with often like a lot of the hangouts that Destiny did with.
Would it have been better if he added scary ambiance? I could hook Lonerbox up with a guy, scary ambiance guy.
Fuentes. So yeah, it's not you can disagree with it, but it's not an unsubstantial. To say that, I think you're just dodging. I think you're deflecting and
dodging,
and it's weak.
Dodging or deflecting? How is it a dodge? It's a direct response to your critique. A dodge to this critique would be him changing the subject, not responding directly.
Nothing you said there says anything I did was dodging or deflecting or weak. We both agree that he was angry with my content, with the way that I covered that content. He was angry with my commentary on that interaction. And that's the only related content that I've put up on my channel. That's my content. The raw footage, the B-roll.
Mr. Mandela Effect says 0% chance Loner isn't a propagandist. I watched him 180 on basically every position. Was a paying member for like 11 months before October 7th. Yeah, no, I just don't believe you. I don't believe you that you were a paying member. I just don't believe you that, he was a propagandist. I mean, your position is, I used to agree with him until, I mean, what, did he change? Does he now support the Russian invasion? Or you're all talking about like before he was okay with violent terrorist attacks like October 7th, then he wasn't, or before he believed that Israel should not exist, and now he believes that it should exist. Before what was like the big flip-flopped? Not on Ukraine, just specifically on this, that he changed all of his positions and became a propagandist for Israel. Okay. I mean, you convinced me.
The stuff that he could have easily clipped out from my commentary that he can use himself, that's his content. My content made him angry, okay?
We disagree on this heavily.
It's also just as well that like at least with me commenting on people like him, like there are at least like some people in my audience who could be like swayed.
Rafah invading Gaza. So he was against invading Rafah and then he supported invading Rafah. That's the flip-flop. And how does this mean he's a propagandist? I mean, even if you prove that he changed his position 1 or 2 times, the idea of Israel going to a country, then changing some positions about said country, I mean, that just, like, even if I disagree with whatever that position is, that doesn't mean you're a propagandist. That could just mean you change your position. Like, since I came to Ukraine, I had some changes on some of my positions about this country because I learned more about the country.
By that away from positions that they might sympathize with.
Is it that you disagree with what he believes now, or that you think he was paid to change his beliefs, or that you think that he just cannot take anti-Israel commentary or never gives it, or?
I actually know how to talk to these people and you guys don't.
Loner, can you?
In any case, you're also aware though, you keep calling this like a propaganda tour. You think meeting Nabil al-Kurd to talk about his situation in Sheikh Jarrah, that would be an Israeli propaganda tour?
That's one moment where you guys were.
It's not one moment. That was like 2 or 3 days we were in the West Bank, and that was just West Bank related stuff. So I've looked, unless there is a great deal of stuff that, because I've looked at pretty much everything that is on that channel that guy posted, who shot your trip. There's nothing that I've seen there that does not lead me to believe that overall it was
a propaganda trip. And the thing is
Propaganda
that
for who?
that's
Propaganda for who? The government?
And I'm not saying that you went into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to do propaganda for Israel.
Yeah, you think
but
I'm a useful
Israel
idiot. It's fine.
That way.
You think,
Israel wouldn't
yeah,
let
I'm asking
you
you.
in to begin with. They would not let you do that to begin with if they did not go in thinking like, we're going to get something pretty good out of this.
They would really? You think the Israeli government?
This is really where I lost a little bit of faith in Vadim, because how does he think Israel works? Sir, you critiqued that airstrike we did. You're not allowed here anymore. I mean, if Lonerbox was like openly like praising Hamas and what happened on October 7th on social media or something, then maybe there would be a problem with entry into Israel, because they would see you a security risk. But if you're critiquing the Israeli government, just critiquing the Israeli government is not going to be enough to deny you entry at the border. And the idea that they would even go through all your social media history, go through everything, go through all of this for everybody that's coming from what, the United Kingdom? Because that's where Lonerbox is from. He's from the UK, he's from Scotland. It's not really, I would not say that's a bastion of anti-Israeli terrorism. So, I mean, it just, you can go into many countries and still critique them. Like, there's some countries you can't, and there's some, like, if this isn't North Korea, okay? The Israeli government has many problems. There's problems with the government trying to control the judiciary, make it less independent. There's problems when it comes to some instances, when it comes to free expression and the flying of certain flags. There's there's problems with Israeli society. The idea that Lonerbox wouldn't be able to go in unless there was some pre-approved, it's just no. It's just this just shows he just doesn't really know much about what it's like to go into Israel and work there. And I have never gone to Israel. I can't really claim much knowledge, but this isn't hard to immediately see through. Like, come on.
Government wouldn't have let us in if they didn't think they could get something good out of it.
Yes, they blocked all
Thank you.
sorts of
Listen,
people from
Vadim,
coming.
my good friend, I love you. Thank you for confirming that you do not know absolute dick about this country that you've been talking about for the last 20 months. What a fucking unbelievably brain dead, tone deaf, disconnected way to approach this entire fucking country. Do you know that, like, I can go to Israel tomorrow and meet with fucking B'Tselem, who literally want Israel effectively abolished, and I can go to the West Bank with them and talk to fucking Hamas supporters tomorrow if I want to. I can go to fucking Jenin and speak to people who say that they want Israel fucking destroyed and the Jews pushed into the sea, and I could publish all that. And I could go to B'Tselem and talk about how it's apartheid and there's a genocide in Gaza. I could do all that tomorrow if I wanted to. The Israeli government is not going to fucking only let me in. The Israeli government is not only going to let me in because they think they can get something out of me. What the fucking mental thing to say. You don't know anything about that country. Why are you even talking about it if that's your assumption? Fuck me.
I mean, I would expect you to say all this horse shit, dude. Like, I mean, you've like said a lot of things that are really combination of either like out of touch or lead me to sometimes to think like you just, you know what?
His brain has been fried. His brain was fried because, I mean, this is tough pressure from Loner's being tough with him, but I mean, it's all deserved, honestly. I mean, I probably wouldn't have gone into like the brain dead. I don't know if I would have gone into all that, but I mean, it's not like it isn't deserved. I mean, Lonerbox took the time to get off his ass, go to Israel, go to the West Bank, talk to these people, put in all these effort, and he probably has enough frustration with seeing rando no names on the internet make claims. He already certainly has enough frustration with having one of the most popular streamers in the space make these claims, but now he's talking to another person making this claim while he's in the room with them. I mean, I don't know exactly what you expected, especially if you are going to make claims like, oh, they wouldn't have allowed you in the country unless you were making propaganda for the Israeli government. It just shows like a lack of effort. I mean, wouldn't it have not just been easier to just ask, like, do you think they would allow you to go in if you weren't XYZ? Like, even asking it would have softened the blow in a way because he wouldn't have seemed so confident and snarky about it. And I think like if it wasn't so confident right off the bat, it'd be easier for him to back off of some of these more, I would say, silly positions.
Again, I've had like a lot of conversations here that I did.
It's one thing to say like I would have interviewed him differently. It's another thing to say you are a propagandist, and it is reasonable to think that you're a paid propagandist, or talk to you or talk about you as if you're a paid propagandist, completely with no evidence, completely with nothing to substantiate it. That's comfortable to do. Like I don't. You're gonna get flustered when you get a like angry response, I guess.
Was not prepared to get into, but like, yeah, I just bro, like they're like, would I be able to get into Israel to do all these things? Do you think it would be that I could do that very easily?
See, this would have been a better way to open, honestly.
Based on your Twitter history, yeah, what the fuck do you think would happen? What do you think would happen if you went to Israel?
You think that I would be killed by the IDF? I don't know. What are you? No,
I'm asking you what you think, because I know that you don't know anything about this country. But yeah, I just want to see what you think.
I don't think that I would be allowed into Israel to begin with.
Why not?
Because of the fact that I post things that are very like anti-government. Like
do your own research. Crowd is very good at judging people who actually go out and do their own research from their comfortable couches.
Thank you for the 6 euros. Look, he's an American. They're probably not going to give him any trouble, man. If he said something like celebrating the death of the Israeli embassy staff or something, that might be like the closest you could go to the sun before. No, that's basically, I think once you get to that point, that's when you're going to get trouble. But anything beneath that, like if you're just like, the Israeli government is doing something, even like words like genocide, like you're committing a genocide against the like Palestinian people, you're not going to get arrested. You're probably not going to get stopped. Yeah, I mean, currently, honestly, I would not be that surprised if it is easier to be a critic of Netanyahu and get into Israel than it is to be a critic of Donald Trump and get into the United States. And that's with everything that I've ever said about Bibi, all of my critiques, all of my vitriol for him, still standing.
Completely opposed to their genocide, and like I constantly call out how, you know, like what insane liars they are. I mean, like take
okay, so pick. Like, look at my so this is, I can tell you what this, so you can look at my main channel, because this is what the security guy looked at when he was interviewing me. Like one of my videos on my main channel, like, and the more recent ones when I got there, was about traveling Israel being full of shit about the about denying the Nakba. There was another one about Netanyahu being insanely dishonest when his interview with Lex Fridman. There's a Gaza history video that's literally covered in Palestinian flags. There's a video that he would have scrolled past that was about apartheid in Israel and Palestine. So you think they don't let people in because they criticize the country?
I think that they look at you and they recognize that overall, in spite of any sort of criticisms.
So does he think that there's like an individual like Israeli officer that has to determine if he's sufficiently soft-handed in his critiques of Israel in order to get into the country? Like he has to make some determination of, oh, well, he believes Israel should keep the Golan Heights, but he doesn't believe Israel should take Gaza, but he believes that, like that, like they're making some list or something. How would this work?
That you might have that you overall are like helpful to their project. That overall,
wait, how much do you think they saw of my content? Do you mean the government or the nation as a whole? When you say,
I love this idea of some Israeli officer having the job of having to watch all of Lonerbox's streams to figure out like if he's sufficiently pro-Israel enough. Look, I'm not saying they don't do any security checks, they don't check stuff, but dude, they're not sitting down and watching all your streams. They're not like really getting down and delving into X, Y, and Z. If you're going to embed with the Israeli Defense Forces, like the IDF, I think it'll be a little different. That's not to say that they wouldn't put any news organization that might be critical of them with them, because I've seen them do Western journalists that have still done some critiques of them. But I think some of the critiques that Lonerbox made, I don't know if that would be welcome with the IDF. But to get into Israel itself is a little different.
Their project, or they'd get something out of it.
Yeah, I don't think that either of you would have been invited to Israel if
half his chat is Israeli. Is that supposed to be a critique of Lonerbox? Look, if half my chat was Russian, that would not matter to me. What matters is the values and the statements and the beliefs that are being espoused. If I had everything, if half my chat was Russian, that'd be pretty surprising. But like ultimately, I don't think that matters. What matters is the values and the positions that are being pushed. I don't care if half of Lonerbox's chat is Israeli. And I don't even know if that's true.
Invite us.
I don't know.
You don't know. You don't know who invited us. You don't know how the trip started. It's probably still on. It's probably still on one of Mere Destiny's channels. The whole trip started because we were invited by Sev. It was a Palestinian who lives in Israel was the one who spurred the idea, and then we just started to make connections from there. We just people came in and said, "Oh, I know a guy," because everyone in that region knows a guy. That's also why we met Isawi Frage, who was whose father was murdered in the Kfar Qasim massacre, the Israeli-Palestinian Knesset member. That's why he was one of the interviewees. That's why we met Mustafa Barghouti, a guy who is very radically against Israel. But you think like the government allowed this to happen because it benefits them? You think Israel would let someone interview Mustafa Barghouti?
After watching Destiny's interview with fucking what's his name, Ilan Levy, where the disagreements that they had were so fucking tittling, and he basically was just yes-anding him the entire fucking time. Yes, I think that was their outlook on it. Whether or not you guys went into it thinking that's exactly what you were, I don't know. I kind of think maybe you guys were in the dark about it. And
well, you don't know. So why don't you wait? So you don't. So you don't know. So why don't you ask? Why don't you just ask some questions? It feels like
because I don't completely. For one, I don't.
You think I'm going to lie?
Trust everything you have to say. I also.
When have I ever lied to you, Vadim? When have I ever lied to you? Provably.
I don't know.
We've spoken a lot.
Say some really crazy things when it comes to
Comrade
Israel and
you can think
identity.
Stop.
Guys say things that are wrong and you disagree with, or you think I'm losing my way or whatever. When have I ever lied to you?
I don't think you've lied to me, but there's always a first time. I don't know.
So why don't you ask and make up your mind? Is there surely okay? Because clearly I've had this unique access to the fucking devil themselves.
You also would not necessarily know, like I just said. I just entered into this saying you very well may not have gone to Israel thinking oh, this is how I'm perceived and this this, that, and the other thing. But I genuinely do not believe from everything that I have read about they don't. There's so many there's so many investigators or rather news people that are not allowed to certain areas and certain I personally would fucking love to go to Israel to look at all this stuff, but I know that I would be just most people that that you and I both know in we just wouldn't be.
As an American citizen, they're probably not going to check you. That's probably the most likely.
I was not here to debate you, and I'm not prepared to have any conversations with you right now. You've come in.
That's very clear. He wasn't prepared for any conversation on this. When he said it's tricky, why not just say he's obviously not paid? That's not true. But I believe he needed to be stronger in his critique. Why submit yourself? Thank you for the $5. Oh, I would like a bagel. Why submit yourself to the Hassan's paradigm about this interaction? Why submit yourself to an indefensible position that's not even really your own, that you like walk back to get to the conclusion of? Just say that you wish he was more stringent in the actual like interviews instead of after the fact, because you thought it would be harder maybe for him to make content out of it, the guy he interviewed. And if that's your position, that could be your position, but it's also not a position that's based in he's a paid Israeli propagandist, and it would also put a lot of other journalists and a lot of other documentarians in a tricky situation.
Made yourself clear about this stuff, and I still absolutely hold to the fact that I think that you really did drop the ball with your coverage with fucking Yashel Fleischer, and I don't like I did not know I was going to be like roped into this.
Well, you made, like, I'm really trying to think under this framework. Was my right sector interview evil? Was my interview with the Kraken guy for just the historical record and trying to describe to people what happened there, was that evil because of like Kraken's nationalist roots? I'm trying to like, it's just this is such a, I disagree.
You made a claim, so I wanted to give Lonerbox a chance to respond.
It's the fact that you said it was like not far out for Hassan to believe that I was a paid Hasbara propagandist. When you know, but my assumption was like, you've seen enough of this to know full well that's an insane thing. That's completely indefensible. But you know, I guess
the reason why I said to begin with that I thought that it was not a is because we know that people are paid for like that. That's just not a secret.
Yeah, but you haven't seen those paid propaganda. Like you haven't seen like people who have actually done propaganda content on Israel and compared it to mine. Because if you had, you would have no fucking idea. I understand that it's like I understand that to you guys, like there's very like to you, like there's not really all that much difference between a two-state solution, like a two-state solution is person and fucking Ben Gavir. But like for most people, there is.
Do you realize that the reason why I said from the get-go that I don't think that that this was a paid, like that you guys were paid to come here, is because, I actually do know, I have a friend who was paid, or an old friend, an ex-friend who was paid to do one of those propaganda trips. So I do know what that looks like. I don't know. That's not to say that every single one is going to look exactly the same, but I actually did not think that you were paid to do this. However, I think that it is like all I was saying when I was saying that like it's not crazy to think that is because
it is crazy.
No, it's not crazy.
Yes, it is. If you know anything about the conflict, it's fucking insane. Yeah. So if you knew anything,
like paid content, I mean, the paid propaganda tours is not done in the fashion that Lonerbox done it, and they're definitely not going into the West Bank and going into these areas and like guiding them. Like you said, it was suspicious that people were guiding him around. You just get local fixers. People do this all the time. It's pretty crazy to believe. It is crazy. It is crazy to believe. Just like centralize your critique on the interview. Don't try to portray it as, oh, it's a propaganda effort. Just say you wish the interview was tougher.
Thing about the conflict, and you actually in good faith watch the footage that's up already, you would know. Yeah. You would know full fucking well.
Do you think that people are not paid by Israel to do propaganda?
Not to do what we did. No, 100% no. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's what I'm fucking saying, dude. I'm saying that's why I am confident in saying that I don't think yours was a paid propaganda trip.
But that's also why it's insane to believe it was.
But to most people, I can understand why they would assume that. And it wouldn't be necessarily like this, like agree. Why? Because we know that that Israel does pay people for propaganda trips.
But you also know that they don't pay for what we did. They don't pay for people going to see
we're
people from
going in
Sheikh
circles
Jarrah or
here.
people.
I've already
No, we're not
told
going in
you-
circles. It's because you're saying something that doesn't connect. First of all, it's not insane to think that,
I'm
but you're very
speaking
confident
to
saying that I
why
wasn't
I
paid.
think other people, why it would be reasonable for people to assume that what you did was a paid propaganda trip. I think that
Why?
they're wrong. But why? Why again? Like, oh my God, we're going in this fucking circle.
Yeah, but you're saying two things at once. One, on the one hand, you're saying you're very confident that it wasn't paid.
Dude, we're just gonna go. I've made myself plain about this. I'm not going to say the same thing over and over and over again. If you want to go to like one more thing that you want to get out there before we wrap this up, I'll hear one more thing out. Each thing kind of seems to take like 5 to 20 minutes. So is there anything else?
No, I think I'm fine.
All right.
Oh, that was
Okay.
painful.
All right. Well, great talking to you, man. I'll speak to you another time.
Was it great?
Okay, bye.
It's crazy.
Okay.
Hello.
Are you? I'm not trying to do any kind of like pileups or whatever. Are you familiar with Mudahar? Some Ordinary Gamers.
Oh God.
Got him.
So there was others after this that wanted to jump in and talk to Vadim that did not agree to that conversation. Anyway, Vadim after this, I think. Oh my God, he stays for another how long? 30 minutes, 20 minutes?
Sleep
What did we
really
even
terribly.
talk about?
Is in regards to, I have the same thing that I have to say to Hutch, is that like in terms of all of the harassment that he has received, some
It's
of
just
it
straight back to Ethan. Anyway, I'm not gonna watch that. I don't care about that. This seemed like just a walk back from the conclusion. If you have a position on the Ethan Hassan thing, whatever, but you don't need to defend Hassan making ridiculous claims about other content creators as, oh, that's actually pretty normal, or oh, it's reasonable to believe. Even if I don't believe it, and even I wouldn't, because I know that that's probably not true. It's okay if he says it because it's unbelievable, or at least it's easy to believe. It's not crazy. That's just not how it is. That's just not how it is. I think Vadim needs to sit down and really think if him claiming that it's not crazy for them to talk about him as a paid propagandist is from a position that is derived from him logically sitting down, and if somebody was to do an investigation into Lonerbox, it would come to this conclusion, or is it just based on the fact that he happens to be in the other club right now in this drama war, and he's not sufficiently rah-rah or sufficiently in the camp with Palestine in the way that you want him to be? And so this is the position you have. And that's not to say that he isn't supportive of Palestine. He is supportive of Palestine in many ways. Just didn't display it in a way that Vadim wanted in this interview, I guess. Either way, like, it's much easier to just say, I think we need to be tougher on these people than it is to take Hassan's indefensible position that he wouldn't defend in this environment like this because Vadim just showed that it's indefensible. Okay, I'm done.